welcome. Thank you for attending our virtual best practices workshop. And what we're going to talk about first, because it's not so much the elephant in the room, it's just the elephant that won't go away. COVID-19 is still out there. And we know that there's been some group rides that have reestablished, or maybe they've reestablished with a particular protocol. So we're looking for best practice. And if you're not in a group ride, what is your best practice individually for dealing with COVID-19? You discuss that, and you'll get 10 minutes. There'll be a countdown clock when you're going to come back into the room. And then we'll have a discussion and talk about that. So we're going to discuss this. So who was the leader for room 1?
That would be me, Jason.
All right, Jason, what'd you come up with?
Well, one of us rode with groups regularly, and 3 of us were mostly solo riders or riding with one other person. And the idea was, regardless, to keep your numbers small. One of us was in a group of 4 to 6 and going very, very fast, like 18 or higher miles per hour. So they figured anyone that was sick would not be able to keep up. And generally, any place you're gonna, like at a stop, when you're at a stoplight or you're in any situation where people are gonna group together, make sure you have a mask on. So those are some general takeaways.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, was that pretty much the report, Jason?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so who's the leader for room 2?
Smaller groups, we talked about having a preamble where, a standardized statement about COVID. If you have COVID, you should not be riding. We'll see you next time, whatever the case may be. At freewheelers, we've mandated that you have to have a mask with you on the ride. You don't necessarily have to wear it while you're riding, but you have to have it with you on the ride. And normally, some people will put them on when we stop at our SAG stops, and some people, if we're going to go into a store or whatever, they put them on. But what we've learned to do is we've learned to realize what 6 feet is. We have kind of gauged it, so even when we group up at the beginning of a group ride, we're still at that distancing around when we make those preamble announcements and such. And we've also dropped post-ride socials. That's something that doesn't happen anymore. Is after the ride where people get together for lunch or a late breakfast or whatever the case may be. That's kind of gone away.
Okay, I'm hearing that too in some other clubs. All right, so our last room is room number 3. Who's the leader there?
Roger's the leader of room 3, and amongst our 3 participants, we had one who is still participating in group rides through a club, yet on a smaller and less formalized basis. And then we have a couple riders who generally ride either alone or don't see a lot of people out on the trail, so it's not really an issue. And that's really about it. I did have an experience for a couple months this summer on a trip that was planned pre-COVID that we went anyway in Boulder, Colorado, and rode a lot. And interesting enough, the practice out there was to always have a mask/gaiter on you. And literally people, when people would go down the street passing other cyclists going the other direction, people would lift up their gaiter. I guess it's just a very considerate, taking COVID fairly serious kind of community. But I'm not sure if you guys have experience with, with pulling your gaiter up while you're out riding or not, but always certainly having a mask to the extent you stop and need to go into places or whatever is always a good idea. So that's about all I had. I did mention that we have a bicycle greenway volunteer project going on in Key West as part of the Bike Ped Master Plan with a group called Street Plans, a fairly well-known outfit that does a lot of great bicycle pedestrian infrastructure things. And we were put on hold with the COVID, and actually we just have restarted the project in the last several weeks, and we're actually doing a volunteer installation of some of the features along our greenway within the next couple of weeks. So we've got extra precautions with COVID as far as for the volunteer group, but it's not, we're going to move forward with it. So that's
Okay.
group 3's thoughts.
All right. Right. Well, and for me being a member of 35 bike clubs throughout the state, I do get newsletters. I have seen some practices. Naples Velos had posted a pretty significant protocol for COVID. But individually speaking, I get a little concerned over the numbers are going back up. And just hearing from other people, we know that certain restrictions are different, say in Miami, than they are in Tampa even. It was left primarily to either mayors or something like that. Pinellas County, for instance, right now, because the governor's ban on the meeting in person has been lifted, that our BPAC now has to meet in person. We can't do a hybrid or a virtual pedestrian meeting because of the sunshine laws. And that was the interpretation that Forward Pinellas had with regards to we now have to meet in person. So it is kind of different around the state, and that makes it very hard. Sometimes I get emails about, what is FBA's position on this? Well, the state of Florida is huge. And even the Department of Transportation broke it up into 7 districts. And sometimes it runs differently, sometimes it doesn't. But having a governor that pretty much left it at the local level has made this very interesting for every Floridian. So I'm not sure if anybody has some insights into that with regards to the protocol or whatnot, but I guess I'm more curious of what do you do individually? Here in Oldsmar, we don't have to wear a mask if we're exercising outside, and I personally don't, but I ride alone, and we don't have a lot of people out on the roads or even on the trails in this part of Pinellas County. Now, today I was out riding and I did notice some cyclists are wearing masks probably all the time that they're out there. And that could be their personal choice of, for whatever reason. I don't have a judgment on any of it. I just know what I'm doing, and I try to avoid people. If I run into somebody while I'm out there, I'm always aware of the distance and the direction of the wind, just to kind of be considerate in that regard. So if anybody has anything personal they'd like to share with regards to dealing with the pandemic at the moment?
Right now, I ride with a group, but I ride with the same group all the time. There's about 8 of us that ride together every weekend. And we don't wear masks on the ride. We carry masks with us. If we stop at a convenience store or whatever, then we'll mask up. But for the most part, we've just learned to kind of keep arm's length, I guess, away from each other. But we do ride pace line. We haven't had any issues, and I feel fairly comfortable, but I feel comfortable with that group. I don't know that I could say the same if I was in with a group of strangers that I would know.
And David, you're in the Seminole area, correct? So you're road riding as opposed to being on the trails?
Correct. The trails are pretty popular around here, and riding a road bike on a trail can be a fright night episode. It's you get a lot of users on the trail that don't really get out there all that often, so they don't know kind of protocol, and they're going back and forth. They're on their phones. They're walking their dogs with the tethers across the way. So unless it's something where I'm traveling into downtown or something like that, I won't use the trails. I normally ride on the roadways.
I was going to say, trails are not the best place for a club ride anyway, and groups can kind of take over a trail, and it's the same bullying that we cyclists don't like from motor vehicles.
Right,
so,
right.
There's a time and place for everything. Does anybody else have some personal insights they'd like to share?
This is Jason. I can say our BPAC met physically for the first time on Wednesday, and we tried to get a bare minimum quorum of 9 at the location, and the rest of the people were virtual. But we failed to meet quorum, and we discussed what solutions are. And the one thing that we can do locally is the BPAC can reduce its quorum so that we're more likely to meet it. And that's the thing we have most control over. So the MPO can change its own rules to change the quorum. And we might do that in the future. We don't meet again until January, but that's one thing they're looking at.
Okay, yeah, Forward Pinellas actually cannot meet in its usual room because it's not big enough for social distancing. So we're actually meeting in a separate facility that's going to allow for, I think, 26 into the room. So I can report back after Monday morning. I'll let y'all know.
Our VPAC is meeting this week, and it's going to be hybrid, but they said that they're going to have a quorum in person, to reach a quorum. So that's a good idea, though. I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason, because tell them that we can change the quorum, because I haven't heard yet if we're going to be able, the people that have responded, because most people I know are still doing it virtually. And we haven't started back our bike trips yet through the Everglades. I just don't feel that comfortable yet in doing it. So, because the numbers are going up instead of down. So I'm going to hopefully, I'm just going to keep going month to month before we decide. But I'm encouraging people, if they want to go out and ride on their own, I'll be happy to offer them information, give them a brochure. And I could lead, one or two people if it was, if I felt like it was safe. So we just haven't started that yet. But, but I'm welcome to help anybody that wants to ride on their own through some of the trails through the Everglades.
I don't know what else. We haven't really had meetings at Sorg Orlando. I think we've had one since COVID started, and we did it at a trailhead after a ride.
For some, it's following the restrictions clearly. If there's certain laws in play, you do have to abide by those. And then individually,
riding, though, it's respecting people's.
Yeah, it's a courtesy. It's
right.
That level of
Just
what
respectful and careful. So that's it. We'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, conversations are going to happen. What I really appreciate everybody taking their time and talking about that conversation. At one point, I think it was either the annual membership meeting, we were calling it the elephant in the room, and clearly it's here to stay. So I don't expect this is the last we'll hear of it, but the association is monitoring either the CDC or what the US Cycling has been putting out. We have links on our website. There's been some level of some best practices that some have put out there. We shared the Naples Velo. It's those types of things, and I think they do come back to just what the common courtesy is for caring about yourself and for each other.